Ali, Amazon FBA. There are understock fees. There are overstock fees. Amazon saying that we have to get our stock in as early as possible. How do we find the optimum?
Let's go. Hey, let's take a quick second to do a little side note. If you're getting value from this podcast, it would mean a lot to us if you could subscribe wherever you're listening. So let's make this our general agreement. If you're getting value, we'd love it if you could just click subscribe, potentially the bell button, and make our day. Cheers. All right, Zamir. So we often hear from brands that Amazon is charging them fees for storage, which is correct. So Amazon charges you to store your products in their warehouse. Yes. And that builds up. And so there's an overcharge fare, right, of being overstocked. So I've got tourist stuff in Amazon's warehouses, their fees are kicking in, and I'm being punished, right? But that coin is two-sided.
It is. It very much is. The thing is that those fees are very tangible, right? We know how much we're going to get charged for storage. Forget about overstorage, after 6 months, we know how much the storage fees are going to be. And so there is definitely a push from Amazon to say, don't overstock. But at the same time, as you say, the coin has a flip side to it. And that's not as clear in terms of the costs. So Amazon will throttle how much visibility you get. So that's a really key point. If you're understocked, if you drop below 30 days worth of stock, that comes through. You'll get less visibility. It means you're more reliant on advertising. That's got a higher cost to it, and there is a penalty there. And again, FBA will charge you a premium on your FBA fees if you're under 30 days. And as that ratchets down to 14 days and below, that will all come through as well. So there is a very definite flip side to being understocked.
And I think people kind of like underestimate this quite heavily, right? So what people need to really understand is, yes, you could be overcharged or you can be charged for having stock in Amazon's warehouse. Absolutely fair. And I think you're right. It's tangible. You clearly know the answer. And you know what that's going to be. People don't know about how much Amazon will punish them realistically for being understocked. And how can people figure that out? What's the kind of like rule of thumb? What do people need to be doing? Like, how do we work through that?
It's incredibly challenging to quantify. That's the problem. That's why when people are estimating, it's very easy to estimate how much it's going to cost you if you're overstocked. So here are the variables you need to consider, right? First thing is you're going to be throttled. You're going to get less visibility from an organic perspective. So if you want to maintain your sales, you're going to have to pay more in advertising. So a larger proportion of your orders are going to come through advertising. That's got a cost associated to it.
Right. So you get increased costs in ads, right? So profitability hit just in that.
Just alone on that, you've got a profitability cost. The next thing is that you're giving up ground. So if you're not ranking organically, one of your competitors is. So this is a slightly medium to longer term issue. So if you're up against a competitor and you're vying for the same positions, or from an organic ranking perspective, you're giving them the upper hand. If they stay stocked when you're not, they're going to get orders that you're not getting. And so there is this competitive element that once you've let them in, it just makes it that much harder for you to regain that from them.
So that's the second hit, right? The second hit is the cost of having to regain your position. So again, another profitability hit in the future.
If your stock has reduced, you've had less visibility as a result of it. If you then come back into stock, there's the cost that you're going to have to rely on. You're going to have to push your ads even harder now because now you've got a load of stock in. If you don't start shifting that really quickly, you're going to have more storage costs. So you have to get your rate of sale back up to avoid future storage costs building up. So now what you have to do is you have to spend even more on advertising in order to get that visibility in order to start selling those items again at the same rate of sale.
Yeah. And I think it's part of this kind of broader discussion that we're generally having, which is Amazon's no longer a place for people to just do on the side, right? It's not really a side hustle space. You need to be a lot sharper about what you're doing. And so having a really clear understanding of your rate of sale, because you're kind of getting costs brought in all over the place, right? And so having a really clear understanding of your rate of sale and then expanding it out for 30 days and make sure you have more than that. So what, 30 days is your new zero, would you say?
30 days is definitely your new zero. To be safe, I would push it up to 45 days.
Yeah. So, and it's you kind of find the balance between your storage costs.
The other things just to bear in mind, and the reason this really comes to a head in Q4 in particular, is because we've got the higher storage fees that come in during Q4, which has a huge pressure. And at the same time, Amazon's saying to us, look, you have to get the stock in early. We want your stock in if you want it for Black Friday, it had to be in by mid-October. If you want it for the end of December, it has to be in by the end of October. So Amazon's kind of saying, if you want to be stocked up, you got to send it in early. If you're sending in early, it's going to cost you more in storage. But if you want to take advantage of that increase in sales at the back end of November into December, you have to be stocked up for it. But you've also got increased storage fees. So lots of pressures here suggesting to you, actually, maybe you shouldn't stock up.
It's quite hard, right? So I think, and it varies based on how big your product is, because if you're using Amazon's warehouses, if you got a huge product, yes, maybe it is better to kind of run that down and keep it closer to that 30. But if it's a smaller, lightweight, small kind of item, doesn't take much space, kind of just load them through, right?
Yeah, and I think, again, come back to this whole thing. If you're looking at numbers and you're trying to do that forward projection on this, then the only numbers you've really got there is, with any certainty, are these storage fees. What you do really need to build into that, though, is these additional costs for advertising and for regaining the position, and the cost to your brand reputation almost on Amazon for a competitor brand take advantage of you not being there. Remember, if you're not there, if you're not stocked, say you don't stock up for the whole period, you run out of stock in the first or second week of December, you're giving away those sales. You're not able to compete on advertising. Those are cheap sales for your competitor to grab up and convert on.
Yeah. And we see this empirically, right? So this isn't just something that we kind of like put out of the air. We see this empirically with all of the brands that we look after. We are constantly pushing to make sure they have for day zero stock. So 30 days minimum, 45 even, worth of stock in their fulfillment centers, because we know they'll get throttled, and then we know it'll affect their profits.
Yeah, you're right. We do some very complex forecasting to find the sweet spot for this and to make sure that we come out with a margin that's strong for each of the brands. It's not as clear as it looks just straight on.
Actually, just for the benefit of anyone. So if you kind of want some of that forecast template, just reach out to us. Get in touch with website, one of the channels, and we'll happily share it with you. But I think that's one of the key things that's really important for people to understand, that there's a balance that needs to be had, overstocked and being understocked, and it'll vary based on product and category, and also your tolerance. But realistically, you're gonna have to factor in both sides of that coin.
Yeah, you need to know your market, you need to know your customers, you need to know your product, your numbers, you need to know how you influence them, and you have to be on it throughout the period to make sure you're hitting that optimum rate of sale every single day.
All right, Zamir, here's today's question. At what point does bread become toast?
You and your questions. What point does bread become toast?
Yeah.
So it's in the toaster, I put it in the toaster, when it pops, it's toast. It's not going to be as easy as this.
What if it stops halfway and you push the
Okay.
cancel button on it? And
Okay.
how
No. But sometimes I have to put it down again and run it a second time, and then it's burnt. It's toast, two toast.
It's too much
Over
toast. And like, we're in the dial at 1 or 2 or 3, like, we're in the dial. Does
Different
it become
dials
toast?
on different machines, they're not calibrated. Right? You know what we need? We need something like the Scoville meter.
A uniform
toast.
measure for
A
toastiness.
uniform measure. We will call it the alley. How many alleys is your toast? my perfect toast is 12 alleys.
Oh, love it. Love it. I don't know if I'm good enough for a unit, but I'll take it.
What a unit you are.
Cool. Well, I think that kind of gives the whole lot on this one, right? It's a relatively short and sweet little episode, but I think it's got a really important nugget in there for anyone who does kind of like read through it or listen through it. Have an awesome day, everybody. One love.
One love.